King County Superior Court issued an order that protects a mass murder suspect at the expense of press freedoms, at the expense of your right to be informed of a potential threat. And this was a decision that was made without media being represented. It was a decision that I think is pretty clearly unconstitutional. The sad part is, both of those two issues, an erosion of press freedoms and a potential threat, not actually being informed of it, that might be the least of our worries. This was a stunning decision, a disturbing decision by a Judge Joe Campagna. He ordered the media not to publish the name of the 15-year-old suspect in that brutal mass murder out in Falls City. Police say he murdered his parents, his 9 and 13-year-old brothers, his 7-year-old sister. He apparently, according to police, thought he had killed his 11-year-old sister, but she actually survived. She played dead, according to the police. And when it was safe, she was able to escape and get over to a neighbor to report what happened. This poor 11-year-old girl. And she says she saw her brother do this. The suspect, who we're not supposed to name, according to the police, per the 11-year-old, was trying to set up one of his brothers as committing the murder and then committing suicide. Like, this is a gross and traumatic story across the board. One in which I think you should get to know the name of the juvenile suspect who has been charged. He's been charged. But during a hearing, the defense counsel said, hey, we want an order barring the media from identifying my suspect or my client. And the judge was all like, okay. Now, there wasn't a lawyer there representing media interests. If there happened to be media members there at the time, they could have stood up and said, wait, we object. And I believe 2 did. Como was one of them. But clearly, I think it's fair to say not all media was represented, nor media members represented. I wasn't there. This building, we didn't have anyone there who could stand up and unilaterally decide on behalf of an entire company, oh, we object to this. That's not generally how this works. And yet, that's how they went through with it. And by the way, they didn't even send the order to media members who were impacted by this. I got an email from the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office telling me about this. No, and it's not their job to do that, by the way. It should be up to the Superior Court. But we didn't get anything from them. I didn't. I only got the order today because I asked for it. They've got my email address, believe me. They know how to reach me. And so why is this judge, Joe Campagna, protecting a juvenile mass murder suspect? Why? You have the right to know. Shielding the identity of a suspect like this, especially in the context of, we know the kid's name. It's in the court documents. I've got the court record. I have his name. It's right in front of me. So even though the documents exist and we know this kid's identity, you're telling us that we cannot say his name, we can't publish it? Think of it from this perspective, because my concern here is that this is about a judge who wants to protect a teen suspect who most likely will be found guilty or plead down, get a jail sentence that in Washington State, because of his age at 15 years old, he'll be eligible for release and will likely be released in 25 years. How old are you at 25 years if you're 15 now? 40. 40 seems like an awful lot of time still left to live. Imagine he gets out of jail and is now your coworker or your kid's date. You find out your daughter is dating this guy. Would you not want to know this detail about him? I feel like most reasonable people would. But Googling his name probably not going to get you the results that it otherwise would get if media covered this in a significant way. And given the allegations, given the seriousness of the crimes, we are carrying this and covering this in a serious way. It was all over the news last week, and it should have been. But what this judge did here, not just protecting this mass murder suspect, but he also got in the way of pretty basic principles of free speech, especially when it comes to the media. So why? Every once in a while, historically, you will find a case in which a juvenile is involved and there's a protection from the name getting out there. I've not seen it. I'm not saying it's never happened, but I've never seen it happen in the case of a serious criminal allegation. I've seen it if the juvenile is a victim wanting to protect. And I think, I can't speak for all media outlets, but most media outlets wouldn't publish the name anyway, regardless of the order. Generally, juvenile names are not put out there. Now, I disagree with that, generally speaking, if it's about a violent crime. But this was not some kid who stole a Butterfinger. This is not someone who deserves this kind of coverage. There's something called prior restraint, which is unconstitutional. And there are plenty of cases out there from the Supreme Court providing media members a ton of protection from this kind of censorship. And for the nerds out there, go look up Nebraska Press Association v. Stewart. There's a case from 1976. And it establishes a very, very, very high bar for any order stopping the press from putting information out there. It has to be so high that it's almost impossible to even reach. And that's intentional, because that's how important free speech is. There is no compelling government interest in keeping this name private. There's no reasonable argument to bar us from reporting on him. What's the public benefit? You have to weigh the benefits, of course, of the public versus the rights of the accused. I get that. Why do his rights to apparently privacy in the media as a suspect in a heinous mass murder, why is that more important than our right to know his name? I don't think it is right. And you know that if this is allowed to continue, every single defense attorney with a juvenile suspect will make the same exact ask, and then it'll get into the minds of Democrats in Olympia, who will then try to pass legislation codifying this as a right of juvenile suspects who are already told, because, by the way, of his age of 15 years old, well, he's not capable of understanding, the seriousness of a crime like mass murder. That's what we're supposed to be told. He can change his gender, by the way, but that's about it. This is a problem, and I don't think enough people are upset. And I've heard media members are upset about this. Where's your coverage? Where's your editorial about this? Where's your commentary about this? Why are you guys not saying anything loud enough? Now, I work for a company. I can't just unilaterally make decisions, but I've made inquiries about what can happen next, because part of me just wants to violate the order and say, okay, do what you will. What are you going to do to me? You're not going to throw me in jail. You don't even put bad guys who commit horrible acts in jail. What are you going to do to the talk show host who's critical of you?
Yeah, but you're conservative, so
that is fair.
Puts a target on your back.
Yeah, I'll get a book deal out of it. Another one. I'm kidding.